Going on? Welcome to the RoyalsCenter podcast. I hope you guys are having a great morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you. Thank you for taking the time to drop in and give us a listen. So this week we are going to go over the Royals and the fact that they are making some serious moves. Let's get started with some league news first, though. So last week I covered the fact that Shohei Ohtani signed a 10-year, $700 million deal with the Dodgers. And later on during the week, it was announced that on Ohtani's deal, he opted to defer his payments, making $2 million a year until 2033. From 2023 to 2043, he will make $68 million per year. It was just crazy. Nobody thought that Ohtani would do something like that, but it was something that Ohtani himself wanted to do. Supposedly, he brought it up to all the teams that he talked and negotiated with, and he wanted to do this so that team could go out and pay more players and win. The San Francisco Giants signed outfield Jung-Ho Lee to a 6-year, $113 million deal. The Pirates signed first baseman Rowdy Tellez on a 1-year deal. This week, the Dodgers and Rays made a trade. The Dodgers sent right-handed pitcher Ryan Pepiot and outfield Johnny DeLuca to the Rays, and in return acquired outfield Manuel Margot and right-handed pitcher Tyler Glasnow. The next day, the Dodgers signed Tyler Glasnow to a 4-year, $110 million extension. The Tigers signed right-handed pitcher Jack Flaherty to a 1-year, $4 million deal. The Diamondbacks re-signed Gurriel Jr. to a 3-year, $42 million deal. The Pirates signed left-handed pitcher Martin Perez to a 1-year, $8 million contract. The Pirates also re-signed Andrew McCutchen to a 1-year, $5 million deal as well. And that is really going to wrap up league news for the week. I'm just excited to get into the Royals news. Let's start off with the small things because, again, man, do we have a lot to talk about. This week, we traded reliever Taylor Clark to the Brewers and in return acquired Cam Devaney and right-handed pitcher Ryan Bradley. These are both minor leaguers. It is a relief to get Taylor Clark gone after Clark was just awful with the Royals. He was awful. He went 3-6 with a 5.59 ERA and 59 innings pitched, 65 strikeouts with a 161 whip. But Taylor, we wish you the best of luck in Milwaukee. But in the meantime, thank God we got rid of him. That is just a relief off all Royals fans' chest. We do not have to watch him lose the Royals any more games this year. The Royals traded outfield Edward Olivares to the Pirates and in return got minor league infield Devi Nadal. Olivares was off and on. He was never awful, and last year he was not awful, but he is very injury prone. He batted .263 with 12 home runs, 36 RBIs, 11 stolen bases, and a .769 OPS. And again, he wasn't awful with the Royals, but he was just very injury prone, and it just didn't fit the Royals' plan. Earlier this week, the Royals dropped right-handed pitcher Colin Schneider to waivers, and recently the Arizona Diamondbacks claimed him off waivers. The Royals also dropped Max Castillo to waivers. He is the one that we acquired in the Whit Merrifield trade. No one has yet to claim him, though. The Royals traded right-handed pitcher Jonathan Heasley to the Orioles, and in return we got minor leaguer Cesar Espinal. It was also this week reported that the Royals were very close to trading Vinny Pasquantino to the Marlins for Jesus Luzardo. Now let's get into the fun stuff, shall we? The Royals had a busy and expensive 7 days this week, and man, was it awesome to be a Royals fan this week. It was just, it was awesome. I don't think any of us have ever seen an off-season like this so far, and it just makes us super excited for this coming season. The Royals started off their busy week by signing right-handed pitcher Chris Stratton to a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. He has a second-year player option as well. In 2023, Stratton appeared in 64 games. He went 2-1 with a 3.92 ERA and 82.2 innings pitched with 81 strikeouts and a 114 whip. This is definitely a great addition to our bullpen. It's something that we definitely needed. The Royals later that day would sign left-handed pitcher Seth Lugo to a 3-year, $45 million deal. He can opt out after his 2025 season. Lugo is a huge and a great signing for the Royals. This is one that we definitely needed, and it kind of had a snowball effect as well. Lugo was originally a reliever turned to a starting pitcher. In his first full season as a starter, he went 8-7 with a 3.57 ERA and 146 innings pitched, with 140 strikeouts and a 120 whip. That Taylor Clark trade was a corresponding move to the Lugo signing, and man, what an upgrade. On Thursday, the Royals signed outfield Hunter Renfroe to a 2-year, $13 million deal with a player option after 2024. I love the signing a lot. I'm a huge fan of the signing. It's very low risk, very high reward. He has good power, and man, can he rack up some RBIs. In 2023, he batted .233 with 20 home runs, 60 RBIs, a 713 OPS, and a .416 slugging percentage. Later that day, the Royals signed right-handed pitcher Michael Wacha to a 2-year, $32 million deal, and he has an opt-out after his first year. This is probably my favorite signing of the season. Michael Wacha is a great pitcher, and this is just definitely something that we needed for our rotation, and this is going to improve not only our rotation, but the team in general. Wacha in 2023 went 14-4 with a 3.22 ERA and 134 innings pitched with 124 strikeouts and a 116 whip. And damn is he good. He's even had a really good career too. At 88-54 with a 3.96 ERA and 1,288 innings pitched with 1,145 strikeouts and a 129 whip. That was a $105 million week, and that makes the Royals the fourth highest spending team in the free agency this offseason. General manager J.J. Piccolo has said that if spring training started today, he would be content with this team. And one word that you'd never want to hear in offseason is the word content. The Royals definitely have spent money, and us fans are thankful. I'm personally so thankful for this offseason that we've had. But this bullpen still needs help. We need to make some trades to improve this bullpen. We could honestly improve our starting rotation a little bit. I think we could start doing that by dropping Jordan Lyles to waivers or just trading him away and getting something small for our minor league system. But I definitely think we should not be content with this offseason. I think we should continue spending and doing what we can to improve this team. That is going to wrap up Royals news for the week. I am going to go ahead and hop on a call with All Sports Kansas City. We're going to go over a few things, a few topics, and let's see what you guys think about this. We're going to go ahead and go over some Royals and Chiefs stuff. I'm going to go ahead and ask All Sports KC a few things about the Chiefs. I know that you guys are huge Chiefs fans. I'm not a huge Chiefs fan myself. I just don't like football very much. But this is stuff that you guys wanted as well, stuff that I'm curious about as well. So the first thing I got for you is what is so different about the Chiefs team this year? Record-wise, they look great. They're 9-5. They have seemed to play very sloppy. Like it seems that they should be blowing out. What's changed this year? What do you think has personally changed?
Well, I think there's two main things that have changed. First, I think the departure of Eric Bieniemy is really the main issue with the offense. So what he's been known for in the past is being a rule, not a rule follower, but he's been super hard on discipline. He really wants to limit the penalties and limit the turnovers, and it actually caused disputes with him and other players like LaShawn McCoy was one of them, and another veteran running back that we had, I forgot. Oh, Le'Veon Bell. Yeah, he had a issue with Le'Veon Bell, and I think that this year you could look back at a lot of our drives, especially when we were cooking, and it was mostly the penalties that would kill the drive or a turnover that would kill the drive. And he was really good on keeping the penalties low and keeping the turnovers low. And then on the other end of things, I think that we chose to go a more defensive route with our team, kind of do the Patriots formula where it was, we know we have an elite quarterback, we know we have a quarterback that can win us games, so let's give him a great defense and then let him make it work with the suboptimal pieces around him. And it didn't really pay off as well as we thought it would. Now, and it did on the defensive end. Our defensive side of the ball looks fantastic, but offensively, I think we needed a complementary weapon to complement Kelsey for Mahomes.
For sure. So what do you think the Chiefs need to do as a team, coaching wise? What do you think they need to do to be locked into making the Super Bowl?
Well, with these guys, I think a big factor will be Richie James. Richie James has had very few snaps across the season, mostly because he dealt with the injury. But now that he's healthy, I think that once they get him more involved, so like Sky Moore, he's not going to play the rest of the regular season. He's on the IR, so that'll open up a lot of snaps. And I have a feeling that Kadarius Toney is going to be limited on snaps as well. So I think that getting Richie James more involved and leaning on Justin Watson and maybe trying to get Marquez Valdez-Scantling more involved. but it's just gonna be we're gonna have to depend on Rashi Rice and Travis Kelce down the stretch, and defensively I think we'll be fine where we're at.
Do you think it's locked in? And like, do you have full confidence, or are you still is it kind of like rocky feeling? You're not sure. You feel like you possibly blow it.
I feel like we're back to normal. We were running the league. We had a dynasty, and I'm not saying the dynasty's over, but I think that this is kind of a rebuild year, and not like a Royals rebuild year, but like just a small down year. And I do think that we can make it happen, but it's going to come down to the players. Are the players going to be able to execute? Is MVS going to be able to make the big catch? Is Sky Moore going to be able to break one off? Are these guys going to rise to the occasion in the playoffs? And if they do, I think we have the talent to win.
For sure. So, as a huge Chiefs fan, what do you personally think about the Taylor Swift impact to the Chiefs, Kansas City, and football in general?
Man, I don't know. I have mixed feelings. I think it's good and I think it's bad. I mean, I think it's great for the city, putting us on the map a little bit more. And, I'm happy for Travis that he found a woman that he seems to love. I mean, we don't know the inner workings too well. But yeah, aside from that, like I think all the storylines of Travis isn't focused on football because of his girlfriend. I think that's a bunch of BS, and I think that the guys that complain that she's on the screen too much, it's whatever. If she wasn't being put on the screen, they would just be putting some random fan on the screen, and we wouldn't even think about it. So I don't. It's not taking away from the game. And I think it's an overall good thing for the city.
For sure, I think economically, it's a great thing. It's caused a lot more traffic in Kansas City, which is huge. Not just for putting us on the map, but like I said, economically, it's going to be great. I mean, I'm sure revenue sales have probably went up like crazy for the Chiefs in general. I'm not sure on the exact numbers, but then Kelsey's jersey sales go up like 500% overnight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just, again, similar to what you said, I think, um, as for NFL fans, I think it's a downside for them. They the way the fans interpret it is that they're mad at her for being on the screen a lot, and it's I don't think it's necessarily something that she's doing because it's not. It's something the NFL is pushing super hard because it's making them money. But I definitely think, yeah, overall for the city, for the team, it's a great thing. It's a great word. Definitely can't have bad exposure. That's a big thing for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and they definitely lightened up these past few games with showing her every 5 seconds, and they're not doing the stats where it's like how Kelsey performs when she's not there versus when she is there and stuff like that. Uh, because like that stat was a small sample size, didn't matter. I don't think he's playing harder because she's in the crowd versus when she's not, and I also think it's unlocking a whole new demographic for the NFL of the younger women because I know of two girls my age that are now getting into football and watching the Chiefs game just because of this. So, more Chiefs fans is always a good thing.
For sure, yeah. Follow along with Travis Kelsey. Of course, seen several articles talking about it. It's the downward spiral for Kelsey. How much longer do you think he has? What do you think he has left in the tank?
Man, I think still the number one tight end in the NFL. Like he has the most yards. I think he's second in touchdowns. And he has a ton of catches, and he's still making plays. He's just not breaking them off and running for 20 yards after the catch every time. I think he's a big body. He can still make catches, and I've heard him talk about retirement a few times, and it does worry me a little bit that he might retire after this year. But I think the only way he'd retire is if we won the Super Bowl. I think if we win the Super Bowl, he might call it quits. But
For sure,
if it was up to me and not up to him, I think he could play at a solid level for 3 to 4 more years.
for sure, yeah. I mean, I've seen several articles about it, and you can only take those with a grain of salt. I mean, um, because again, I don't personally, I'm not going to sit there and lie and say I watch every Chiefs game, every single minute of the Chiefs game. I'll occasionally turn it on, but it's not something that I will sit there and watch. So I don't get to see what like you watch. I don't get to see all that. I just get to see headlines and articles, and that's why I like to ask people like you that are huge Chiefs fans. They could tell me the exact distinct of what they're getting at with that.
Yeah, of course, of course. And the articles is it's so week to week, like Pat has a bad game and all the articles are like, "Oh my goodness, he's not good anymore. He's lost his touch," or he had a negative reaction to the offsides call, and everybody's like, "Oh, Pat's a diva, Pat's a baby." But meanwhile, he's never done anything like that in his 7-year career. So it's like, they jump to these conclusions after 1 week, and I think that usually it's kind of clickbaity with those articles.
For sure. What do you think about that call? What do you personally
Mm,
think? Unbiased.
that's a
That's one thing I
great
like to say.
question.
Unbiased. What do you think of that call?
So obviously he was offsides. On paper, that's offsides. There's no other way to frame it. But I will say this. Um, that call was made 5 times last year, and it had been made 11 times this year up to that point. And it's not it's a weird rule because yes, it's a rule, but it's been broken a lot over these last few years, and it's been widely accepted like as being able to be broken. And I think that when you go into the game as a referee, you kind of got to set a precedent early in the game. Like, okay, we're gonna be really tight on holding calls this game. So early in the first quarter, you should make a call on a borderline holding, and you should be like, yeah, that's a holding. So then the players know going down the stretch that they're not going to be allowed to do that. And something that stood out to me was there was, I think, 3 or 4 screenshots of Kadarius Toney being like blatantly offsides earlier in the game. And I feel like, if they would have called that in the second quarter and he did it again at the end, that's on him. That's 100% on him.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, I think it's 50-50. I think that he yes, he should have checked. Yes, he should have been on sides, but it didn't give him an unfair advantage on that play, and I don't think deciding the game off of that is good for the product, good for the NFL. And like for Andy Reid's reaction and Pat's reaction, I completely understand, and I give him a full free pass. Andy Reid has coached over 25,000 offensive snaps in his career, and that penalty that was the first time it was ever called. And in Pat's NFL career, and maybe in Pat's college career, I'm not sure, he's never had that penalty called. So for Pat to see that crazy, like that's the craziest play I've ever seen live. And for him to see that happen, them to win the game, and then there's a penalty, and it's that call, a call he's never heard in his life. I understand being that upset.
Mm-hmm. Do you think if that isn't called, is it talked about? Is it just a win if it's not called?
I think there could have been a fan or two that saw it and brought up the screenshot, but people are offsides all the time and nobody ever brings it up. I don't think that unless you had somebody going through each individual piece of film, looking at it and taking screenshots, I think it might just go under the radar. I don't think anybody
Mm-hmm.
would, because if you're going back after the fact to watch that play, you're not looking at the pre-snap. You're not looking at how they lined up. You're looking at Kelsey catching the ball and then pulling up with 3 guys in his face and launching it 40 yards across the field to Kadarius Toney. And
Yeah,
so I,
yeah,
I think it's quite possible that it would never have been talked about, but it definitely could have been. Definitely could have been.
for sure. I think that's all I have for that, for the most
Yeah.
part, at least. I might think of some here shortly. What you got for me?
Okay, so yeah, I got a few Royals questions. I follow the Royals, but and I'm a huge baseball fan, but I'm a bit of a fair weather fan. So, now that we've been not doing too hot recently, I haven't been paying attention as much.
It's
But
hard to. It's hard to.
it is. So my question for you is based off of last season, Do you think Matt Quatrero is the coach for the future?
So that's something that I've continuously thought about. I've been questioned before. It's so hard to say because he came in, I feel like with a it was everybody, almost everybody on that team was in their sophomore season. You constantly hear sophomore slump, and I think he just came in at a really bad time. I think it was again, it's so hard to say that he's going to be. But personally, looking at it, I think we need to give him another year or two before we make the decision. Kind of like how we gave Mike Matheny a year or two. We gave him that year or two. First year it was, oh well, it's his first season. Let's see what he's got. And then the next year it wasn't any better, and it only got worse after that. And that's when it was time to say let's move on. But after that first season, it's yes, it was one of the worst records in Royals history. I think it's the second worst record in Royals history. Um, Even with that being said, I think we had awful starting pitching. We can't blame that on Matt Quatrero. We have to blame that on JJ in the front office for not giving him the players that he needs to be good. Aside from that, I mean, I think he could definitely get us to that point to be in playoff contention. I don't think he will be the one to get us to a World Series or win us a World Series, but I think he will set us up for another manager here in the future.
I like that. I like that answer, and that's a good segue. Speaking on JJ Piccolo, do you believe in this new ownership and this new GM? Do you think that they are what we should move forward with?
You know, we've technically had this ownership for I believe 3 years now, maybe four. JJ's only been general manager for a year and a half, and we haven't seen much until this offseason. And up until I would have said October 31st, you asked me this question, and I said no. We need new management altogether. We need a new front office. We need everything. But after witnessing the fact that we spent $105 million in 7 days, it gives me hope. Maybe it's false hope. Maybe they were making these signings just simply to get a good vote for the new stadium, and it's hard to say. Um, I can't I don't think with us having this ownership as long as we've had, and this being the first time we've made big moves like this, I can sit there and say yes. But I also don't feel like I'm at a point where I can say no right now. It's one of them things, kind of like Quatrero. I feel like we got to give it maybe another year or two. If we continue to spend during the off season, or if we continue to trade for decent players, then yes, I think we should continue with this front office and ownership that we have. If this is it, and once the vote goes through for the new stadium and it doesn't happen again, hell no, we definitely need new ownership. That's for sure.
I fully agree. I told myself heading into this offseason, if we don't spend over 110 million on our active roster this season, I will not watch because I can't go through another season like that. And we did, and we really did. And if it did it just to get the vote, screw it. I'm down to watch anyway. But if the vote goes through and then next year we don't do anything and we regress back to where we are now, I will be thoroughly upset with the new management, the new ownership.
And
Um,
I will say with it though, I mean, I've been alive for 21 years now. I've been consistently watching the Royals, I'd say for 12 years. This is the first time, um, as a fan, I've ever seen an off season like this ever. Even 2000, the 2014, 2015 off season, we weren't making moves like this. We signed a few guys. I mean, the biggest signing in 2015 or technically 2014 was Kendrys Morales, and it wasn't even a huge signing. It was 2 years, 17 million. And the fact that, I mean, again, in 1 week we signed $105 million worth of players. That I mean, that's the first time I've ever seen anything like this, and that's why it gives me hope as well.
100%. I fully agree. And my next question is, how much hope does it give you? Do you think we could make the playoffs, or at the very least, be competing for the playoffs up until that September, the final month of the year?
So I'm gonna try being unbiased because as a biased fan, I'm easily gonna just say yes. I say it every single year. I say that we have a chance to be in the playoffs. But if I'm looking at this as an unbiased fan, say I'm a Dodgers fan looking at this team, um, yes, I think that. I mean, we're in the American League Central. The Twins
Hmm.
last year won the division with 87 wins, I believe. And yeah, I mean that's a decent amount of wins, but to win a division and win the division by 10 games with 87 wins is insane. The division is the worst division in all of baseball, and it's probably one of the worst divisions in baseball history. So I think it's 100% possible. I think we go into the season, we split a season series with the Twins, and we win a season series against the White Sox, Guardians, and Tigers. The division's ours. I mean, if it's not ours, it's at least a close race. I think even as Royals fans, if we can at least watch a decently competitive season and still not make the playoffs, I think we'll be content because we haven't watched competitive baseball in 9 years now. So if I mean, I'd be okay if we went and got 83 wins and didn't make the playoffs. I'd be fine with that. I would be completely fine with that. But I think we can make the playoffs. Now, I don't think we can make the wild card. I don't think the wild card is even in talks. I won't even sit there and lie and say that we have a chance at making the wild card because we don't. We have a better
Hmm.
chance at winning this division than we do the wild card. And again, I think it's very possible. And with the acquisitions we've had this offseason, I think it's very, very possible. And I honestly can see it happening this year.
So with and I know the division's really awful. I watched a little bit last year. So do you think that, or have you paid attention? Do you know if the Twins or the Lions or not the Twins or the Tigers or the Guardians have made any signings?
Not too many big signings. I haven't seen much. I know the Twins lost probably their biggest pitcher, Sonny Gray.
Hmm.
I haven't seen much action really with the Twins at all. I know the Guardians have made a few small moves. The Tigers have made probably the second most moves. If it's not the Royals division, I think it's honestly the Tigers division. Matching the teams up, I would definitely say the Tigers would be the biggest threat in the division right now because they've made as many moves, if not more moves, in the Royals this season or this offseason. And I think, I mean, again, like I said, I don't recall the Twins really making any major moves. Definitely nothing notable, along with the Guardians, and definitely not the White Sox. The White Sox are, I think we know that the White Sox are going to be last in the division this year.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but that's part of the reason. I mean, unless something drastically changes over the next few months, that's also a reason why I think the Royals have such a good shot at the division. It's because these other teams aren't making moves to win the division. They're content with their team. And in an off season, the worst thing you can be is content. You cannot be content with the team in the off season. Like in the podcast, I mentioned in my podcast early on that JJ Piccolo said he was content with the moves that we've made this offseason. And if spring training started today, he would be content with it. And with the moves we have, I'm all right with it. But at the same time, you don't want to hear content because this team can get better. We should not be content with the bullpen that we have. The bullpen is, with three acquisitions, it's still one of the worst in baseballs. And I don't think we should ever be content. Um, but at the same time, I am kind of content. But I kind of trailed off there. I think the Twins and at least the Guardians are content with the team they have, and they shouldn't be. And I think that's going to bite them in the ass later on.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So then I have another question. This Garrett Hampson guy. I saw him, I saw we signed him. I didn't think much of it. I thought he's kind of a 4A player type, and I didn't look too much into it past that. But then I saw him on an ad for opening day tickets, and I thought that was interesting. What do you make of him, Garrett Hampson? Do you think he's going to be a key piece or a kind of a bench player, or what do you think?
Um, Before the Hunter Renfro signing, I would have said he would have been our main outfielder because he looking at him um, directly side by side, the biggest comparison and the most ideal comparison which I first saw realistically a couple months ago, was Whit Merrifield. I saw Whit Merrifield. He's got a Whit Merrifield bat. He's got a Whit Merrifield playing type. He can play all over. His main position is shortstop, but he can play all over the field. I would have originally said he would have been our left fielder. Um, but with Hunter Renfroe signing with the Royals, I think he's going to be more of a bench player. That's, of course, if we don't trade away Michael Massey. Michael Massey is apparently on the trade table, and if he is traded, I definitely could see Garrett Hampson going into that role. But
Hmm.
overall, I mean, I really like the Garrett Hampson signing. It's one of them low risk, high rewards.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
mean, he had a 276 batting average last year, and it was only 221 games, but that's still not a bad average. He doesn't have much
Oh,
power
not
at
at all.
all. At all, he doesn't have any power. But he's speedy. He's, I believe, um, fifth or sixth in baseball, fastest foot pace.
Ooh, I did not know that.
So again, I think that he is. I mean, looking at him, I see Whit Merrifield, um, and I mean, I definitely think he could be a key role to the team this year.
Yeah, I like that. When he initially got signed, I kind of rolled my eyes. I'm like, oh, low risk, high reward. Here we go again, same as last season. But that was before we made all these big signings. And I'm a little excited about Garrett Hampson. If he's on the bench, he could be a nice little pinch runner, a nice little utility piece. But yeah, man, I'm really, really excited. I mean, for the first time since 2016, I'm genuinely excited for the season this year.
Yeah, for sure. And Garrett Hampson, he is honestly a player that I've looked at for. If I'm going to be real, the reason why I've looked at him for a while is because of MLB The Show. He
Yeah.
consistently is put on the Royals in Road to October, and that always got me curious if he was a decent player. And I've always kind of thought it was somebody the Royals should sign because he has consistently had a great batting average. I mean, the worst season he had was he had a 211 batting average, but he's definitely a great contact hitter. Definitely shouldn't expect any power from him. Maybe a home run or two, kind of like Michael A. Taylor, home run wise.
Hmm.
But I don't think we can go wrong with the signing. That's for sure.
All right, I got one more question for you. How
All
many
right,
home runs, how many home runs do you think Nelson Velasquez finishes with?
man. What did he have this year? 17 with the Royals, 16 with the Royals,
He had
and
14 with the Royals over 40 games and 3 with the Cubs over 13. So he had 17 over 53 games.
oh wow, I mean that isn't really something that I've thought about because whenever you're thinking of this power team, you're not thinking of Velasquez, but um, definitely he is a power threat that we need to be watching. Probably the biggest power threat on the team. I could see him definitely getting close to that record of 48 home runs. I'll give an exact number. I'll say he'll hit 43 home runs on the year.
I like that. I was gonna say 42, man. I think he can smack the ball. And I actually, not to brag, but I know firsthand he can smack the ball because he hit a foul ball to me at the last game I went to, and my hand was sore for 2 weeks after that.
Yeah, he's a beast, and he was such like I was actually really disappointed about losing Jose Quas
mhm.
because I felt like he was a great bullpen pitcher. But we definitely won this trade by a mile. It's one of my favorite trade acquisitions that we've had in quite some time, and I mean, it felt like every single game he was in a home run, and I mean, technically speaking, he wasn't, but I mean, still 14 home runs in what'd you say 40 some games is pretty fucking insane if I'm being completely honest.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And we don't see much of that in baseball. I mean, I don't know if Otani even did that. I mean, that's saying something a lot right there. And
Yeah.
um, definitely keep an eye out for his power this season. That's for sure.
100%. Well, that's all I got for you, boss.
All right. I think I didn't think of anything else myself. So I think, yeah, that's it.
Well, I appreciate you having me on the podcast, man, and best of luck to you.
Yeah, no problem. Well, you have a good one. All right.
Yeah, you too.
Audio Jungle.